When I hear the term bro, it's got a negative connotation to it.
Toolish guy who spends a lot of time at the gym.
Think they're better than other people.
Is usually quite loyal to his best friends.
You go to a party with him, you can study with him.
Heavy drinking.
Drinks a lot of Red Bull.
DVR.
I
don't consider myself a bro. I don't try and hang out with bros.
Probably play lacrosse.
A male.
Or frisbee.
Snowboarder.
Or slackline.
Traveling packs.
The California stereotype of like how they talk.
Loves to party.
So far we've covered diversity, race, and white male privilege within CU's bro culture, defining each through the constructs of hypermasculinity and heteronormativity. In this final segment, we're going to connect the relationship to femininity and the rules of sexual consent to define the fundamentals of sexual assault here in CU's bro culture. What if men do not want to perform certain acts, do not want to be part of certain scripts? When they go to a party or they're on campus, they don't want to have to be objectifying women or exuding their masculinity out for everybody to see, but feel they have to. What type of repercussions does that have for that individual?
I mean, exactly. That's the problem, is that we could sit here and be like, oh, bro culture does this to women. But I think it's often ignored what bro culture does to men. Right, and that's something we definitely have to talk about, is that bro culture really limits the options that men have in terms of their sexual agency if they don't want to have sex. You know, maybe they're putting themselves in situations where, ironically, they're in a bit of a coercive situation, but the coercion is coming from society, not necessarily the woman they're with, but from society saying, no, you have to have sex with them, and so they're feeling like they have to. It's difficult, right? So if you've been taught your whole life to dehumanize women, which sounds dramatic, but if you look at it in terms of like media, what we're fed in the media, the television commercials we see.
Or the saying, bros before hoes.
Bros before hoes, right? You're always supposed to be disconnecting a woman's like humanity from her body. And so we're taught that from very early on.
So I think that there are ways that women might be cast here at CU as people to be consumed through the way that men talk about women. But I don't know that that's significantly different than most men's cultures around the country. But men feel that too. I think that men actually are expected to always desire sex in a way that is damaging both to men and to women.
And objectifying women, technically, is a type of hypermasculinity as well, because it's trying to make sure that you're proving your compulsive heterosexuality.
You know, you go to college kind of with the expectation of like being able to exercise your freedom and independence, but when the only venue you have for that is a frat party, or like you have to go out on the hill, and to go out on the hill you have to wear a tiny skirt and be really skinny, then you're suddenly forced, like if you want to socialize, you have to fit this model of what it means to be a cute girl.
I think that that's probably one of the larger problems we have here at CU, is this sense that women are on display to be watched and to be surveilled and kind of policed.
This uniform, where if you go to a party and you're a woman, the uniform is you have to wear a very alluring outfit. It has to be very short, lots of skin, lots of makeup, all of the accoutrements that are going to be. But if you're a dude, there's a whole different performance that's going along with that. You have to have the right tattoos and the right gear on and all of that to seem dangerous and hyper-masculine and tough and things that we've been told and socialized to believe that women want. This is what they're going to find sexy. So both women and men are being socialized by the very same media, right? And sadly, women then will go to these parties and think, I'm not being sexist or nothing. I'm just going along with my culture. My generation is being taught. We are even 18 and a switch come on and suddenly all these messages and scripts came into your consciousness. This has been going on since you've probably been a very little kid. The gender training of boys to be hyper-masculine and tough and emotionally distant. And then it doesn't take long for them to see girls as, wow, these are sexualized objects. These are things that we have sex with. Now, if you talk to women, you say, do you think you're a sex object? And women probably won't say that. They won't say, yeah, my aspiration is to be a man's sexual object. Women won't say that. But they have been socialized that I'm to be alluring and seductive and hot and sexy. They don't see that as objectification. They don't see that they're participating in their own exploitation.
Do you think this is something that happens in bro culture here, that women are kind of almost in a sense peer pressured to do things against their natural will in regards to their body, in regards to their emotions?
I think that is something that is encouraged widely across our country. But I think that yes, I think that women are expected to act a certain way sexually, and it is the bro culture, but it's also just our own larger public culture, which expects women both to be pure and to be sexually desiring, and to always want to say yes, and that asking somebody to come home with you means that you want to sleep with them.
This is how it's become such a pervasive part of campus life. You'll see flyers around many campuses, Xmas party. Are you going to be naughty or nice, you know? And the women, of course, are expected to come in lingerie and risque outfits, where the men are controlled, the alcohol, the transportation. And this becomes a perfect storm for sexual assault on college campuses, which is one of the most dangerous places for women in America.
What are the specific types of sexual assault that are happening? What are examples of sexual assault that people don't think is sexual assault?
So an example of sexual assault that someone might not think is sexual assault is if the person you had sex with doesn't remember having sex with you. You should be able to figure out before you have sex with that person if they're so drunk that they're blacked out. And yes, that's a hard line. It's a hard line to figure out if someone's blacked out, but something I really like to compare it to that I think is effective is if you have a DUI. Yeah, you know, 0.08 if you're going to drive drunk, rather. 0.08. Who knows what that is, right? Most of us don't have breathalyzers, but you're supposed to be able to generally figure it out. However, if you decide to drive, even though you're not sure where you are, you might be over 0.08, you might not, then you're taking a risk. You might get caught, you might get pulled over, or you might kill somebody. It's the same thing with sexual assault. You're taking a risk if you're not sure if she's drunk enough or not. You're taking a risk when you decide to have sex with her. And maybe she is sober enough to consent, but you're still taking that risk that she might be sexually assaulted or, God forbid, say that she's been sexually assaulted. Studies have found 0.00005% of cases are false accusations in the end. But we hear about them because it's this power we have with sexual assault that if any man has ever been accused falsely of sexual assault, then the man you know definitely that was a case.
Do you think women are okay with these skewed lines of consent in regards to sexual assault, meaning that they think it's okay to be blacked out and have sex or be had sex with? And do you think there are social pressures that condone that type of behavior?
Generalizing it to you, I think some women, because of how both men and women have been taught sexual scripting, we've both been taught that a woman should be receiving and a guy should be coming on to a woman, and the woman should be passively receiving, and that somehow it's bad if a woman's coming on to a guy, and that even though guys like to joke, no, haha, I think that'd be really hot, that's still not what we're taught. We're taught that you're supposed to wait for a guy to come on to you. You can't be too sexual. And that can easily fall into sexual assault then. Because if the guy's like, well, I'm supposed to come on to you, and yes, you're not being that receptive, but I've been taught that women usually aren't that receptive at all, and a woman's thinking, well, you know, maybe I'm not enjoying what's happening and I wish it wasn't happening, and I might even say no, but he's thinking that that's just what women do, because sometimes that is what women do. And so therefore it can become a really tricky line to fall into sexual assault.
It's a pitfall, you know. The second you try to climb out, you get knocked back down even further. Like I said before, a lot of these girls, given their own expression of identity, would not be the type of person who goes in and just gets wasted every single night. And I think with a lot of those people, for them to conform to the identity that's set aside for them, they need that social lubricant in some way, and alcohol tends to be a common object for that.
Date rape is nothing to be messed around with, and consent is huge. And that may just be in fraternity life. I mean, bro culture might be a different thing, but I know within Greek life, it's a serious thing to be, and that's across multiple fraternities. But I think you also have to look at who's engaging in these things. You know, this sounds horrible, but I know girls who hop around from brother to brother in fraternity, and and then they get really mad about this stigma that they have when they're the aggressors of it.
Do you see women putting themselves in compromising situations on campus or off campus?
Absolutely not. I think that there is no such thing as a compromising situation. I think the very idea of it buys into a lot of victim blaming and woman blaming. I think that a woman should be able to lie wasted, completely blackout drunk in the middle of a street with no clothes on and expect not to be sexually assaulted, and that's the world that I'm working towards personally, because sexual assault is a felony. And so you would expect that someone could lie wasted and not get murdered. You would expect that of any other crime. But somehow when we put women into it and women's sexuality, all of a sudden it becomes different.
So just like trying to define this vague concept of bro culture, the textbook sexual assault is also this vague, fleeting notion that there isn't an exact definition for it. It's so complex, it's so many factors because nobody wants it to happen.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to admit that sexual assault is happening.
And the reason that we have all this victim blaming, there's only one reason that we have victim blaming. Well, there's a couple. One is patriarchy, and that's huge. The other is that, and you'll see that a lot of women participate in victim blaming onto other women. And everyone always thinks this is so surprising, but it's not at all. Because women don't want to see themselves as being able to be sexually assaulted. And so if you can blame a victim at all, then you're taking yourself out of the possibility it might happen to you. Oh, well, I would never be that drunk. I would never wear that. And so it makes it easier for us to think about our own realities. It makes us feel safer to figure out what was wrong with that victim. Because we live in a world where we like to, it's called the just world theory, right? Where we like to think good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. And therefore, if a bad thing happened to someone, what's wrong with them that happened? Because I'm a good person, so only good things are going to happen to me. Unfortunately, we can see, look at the news. That's not the world we live in, but it's still the world we like to operate within. And this might seem disconnected from our larger topic of bro culture, right? But it's completely connected because you're looking at the dehumanization of women. You're looking at a place where CU, college, is the most dangerous time for women.
So these are happening at CU?
Oh, frequently. Every day. Every weekend I'm nervous for my students. And a lot of weekends my students come to me and say that something's happened to them.
I contacted Ryan Huff, the spokesperson for the University of Colorado Police Department, to get the rates of sexual assault crimes that have occurred at CU Boulder. The numbers he gave me represented sexual assault crimes from 2009 to 2011, totaling to 35 sex offenses of forced rape and fondling from on-campus, public property, and non-campus property.
Reporting sexual assault is so rare that any numbers you're going to get from any official institution is going to be problematic. Sexual assaults reported to CU as a school, sexual assaults reported to CUPD, sexual assaults reported to the FBI. It's just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? And that's an important statistic to look at. It has some weight, right? It's nice to see if sexual assault reporting is going up or down. That's an important thing to keep track of. But you have to make sure that we're looking at sexual assault reporting, and that because of victim blaming is completely different from the idea of trying to assess how much sexual assault is occurring. I wouldn't take this on as my life's mission if I didn't think it could be changed. And I think it can be changed. Bro culture can be changed. Like any culture is socially constructed, and it's really important to think about the fact that bros kind of come and go out of this role, because hopefully they'll age out of it, and if we can, or they'll just be in other roles where that's not happening, and if we can just get that to be more common and be like the cool thing, if consent really does become sexy, I think all of this can be changed so that sex can be more fun, healthier, more productive for both people, more connected to not even being in a relationship, more fun in terms of sexual satisfaction, or if you are in a relationship, more fun in terms of that. I think it can just all be changed, and that's the most important takeaway message for me, is that this isn't all just like the saddest thing that you've ever heard and what are we going to do? Because we made it this way and we could unmake it.
You have the power to change bro culture. Instead of these horrific stories that make the news, be an agent for change. Be an agent to help create better men, living more fulfilled lives. Men listen to men. Men are influenced by other men. And I'd like to say, you are empowered. Use that power.
Sexual assault in CU's bro culture is shaped by hypermasculinity and heteronormativity, and their management over femininity, warping the lines of sexual consent through drinking and social pressures. But aside from these, it's males' expressions of sexual assault
They're ultimately a test of consciousness and ethics that lead to a lot of men making unfortunate decisions at the expense of women's consent. But the key thing to remember is that the rates of sexual assault in CU's bro culture are subjective, and that most cases you will never know about because it is a crime that society neither wants to acknowledge nor has room for. This has been an investigation into CU's bro culture. Reporting for the CU Independent, I'm Kyle Ward, and thanks for watching.